How do you do? So nice to have this chance to see you.
Welcome to the next edition of the Cranky Curmudgeon Corner. My name is Paul Thomas, and tonight we are going to be talking about QAnon. With us on our panel, Dan Thomas, Whitney Brooks, and Alan Hessler. The most outrageous claim Q made, in my perverse view, was that liberal Democrats, namely the Clintons, Bill Gates, Tom Hanks, Anderson Cooper, among others, tortured babies in order to increase adrenochrome, a chemical in their blood, which is a delicacy for the above named drinkers of the baby's blood. This claim galvanized support for Q because decency dictates that we all must be against torturing children and drinking their blood. I am definitely against torturing children and drinking their blood. They have even managed to hijack the hashtag Save the Children, so many believe it is synonymous with Q. There is no evidence anywhere supporting the accusations that the Clintons, Anderson Cooper, Bill Gates, or Tom Hanks ever drank the blood of tortured babies. But who needs evidence when it is right there on the internet? How sick is this? And what does that tell you about the mentality and psychological stability of the people who actually believe this shit? What do you think about their psychological stability, Al? Of people who believe that blood was drunk from these babies by Tom Hanks and Anderson Cooper and Bill Gates.
Yeah, it's completely outrageous accusations. I've done a ton of research into Q and on it. I can't say I've ever come across anything or any evidence that shows any of those people, have done it. There have been lots of videos.
But the accusations were made.
Right. Yeah. And again, they're outlandish. They're, crazy. I just can't imagine any sane, rational person, doing something so heinous. So I don't know where those accusations would have come from. Now, again, I've never seen any evidence, despite the extensive research that I've done into it, that I have found evidence that, yes, pedophilia is rampant through Hollywood, even Satanism, but not the blood drinking.
Where did you find this evidence?
Again, documentaries that Hollywood insiders have made. One man, John Paul Rice, who's a Hollywood producer, he did The Hunger Games and We Were Soldiers. Corey Feldman, of course, he's been very vocal about it. Amy Berg produced a documentary. Isaac Cappy, another Hollywood actor. Mike Smith, a Hollywood stuntman turned director. They've all produced documentaries saying that pedophilia as well as Satanism, are just, Hollywood is fully engulfed in those practices. But again, I haven't seen anything about blood drinking and sacrifice.
So do you believe these documentaries that Hollywood is totally engulfed in Satanism and pedophilia?
I do believe that, yes, pedophilia is rampant. Child trafficking is a major, global issue, as well as through Hollywood. Yes, from what I've found.
Dan, do you share that belief?
Do I believe that Hollywood is full of Satanists? Probably not. Satanists are really boring. Do I believe that there's a lot of pedophiles in Hollywood? Yes, because I've seen people get convicted. Woody Allen, for example,
yes,
pretty famous director who made a lot of movies about old dudes with underage girls. Roman Polanski has been accused, and he's also a pretty famous director. I don't think that it's a problem exclusive to Hollywood. I think that rich and powerful people tend to get away with more things than regular people do.
Harvey Weinstein comes to mind with that.
Yeah. Although I believe his was just regular old women, not children. I'm pretty sure he was just a rapist and not a child rapist.
Okay.
But I don't think that, I think it comes back to we're willing to believe things about people that we don't like anyway. I mean, I don't understand why people don't like Tom Hanks. He's he's the least problematic celebrity on any level. He's just nice and quiet and boring. But you know, I am willing to believe that Donald Trump got golden showers from Russian sex workers. I totally believe that. I don't have any evidence for it. It just fits into my worldview of Donald Trump. So when you have somebody who's maybe a little more extreme, perhaps they do believe that Hillary Clinton drinks baby blood, despite the lack of evidence, because that fits into their worldview of her. It just reinforces a previously established belief, so people go with it. And that is one of the things that makes us all vulnerable to manipulation. We don't go seeking out things to disprove what we already want to believe. You don't have a little kid go looking to prove that there's no Santa Claus. They might figure it out in the course of their research and observations, but that's not what they're seeking to prove. And most of us, as just general humans, once we get the answer that we want to have, will stop asking the question. It just becomes part of our belief system. And if you tell a story enough times, it just floats in the background of your mind until people do eventually start to believe it, especially if it doesn't have anything to do with them.
Whitney, Dan kind of laid it out that if you are predisposed to believe something, then it's pretty easy to fall into this belief of anything that that fits into that. What do you think about that?
I think that's true. You know, like how some people are more easily hypnotized than other people.
Well, what do you think? Well, how would you assess the psychological stability of a person who is predisposed to believe that Tom Hanks was drinking the blood of these babies so we could get adrenochrome? Would you say that they're stable or not stable, or what would be your assessment of someone who would believe something like that?
I think I would say that I'm not a doctor, and it's not my place to diagnose anybody as stable or unstable. And I think that speculating on the mental state of people who believe this kind of thing can kind of unfairly fall back on people with mental illness that don't believe those kinds of things. I think that it puts like an unfair stigma on all of people who have some kind of mental illness, because, you know, mental illness isn't just, you know, a serial killer or somebody who has schizophrenia. Mental illness looks like lots of things. So
so you're hesitant to condemn somebody who might believe that because, you know, the unfairness of categorizing somebody as mentally ill. Is that what you're saying?
I'm hesitant to condemn them for believing that because of mental illness, but not hesitant to condemn them for believing it, period. Does that make sense? Like if you told me that, like, say I was talking to some random person and they were trying to recruit me to get in on all of this QAnon stuff and to believe all of this stuff, I would vehemently disagree, and I might judge them for it, but it wouldn't be because they had some kind of mental illness. It would just.
So are you thinking it be more like political persuasion? If you hate Democrats, it's a lot easier to believe that a Democrat like Tom Hanks might be drinking somebody's blood because they're a Democrat, as opposed to, I ain't batshit crazy. It's just that I hate Democrats.
Yeah. And I mean, and I'm not saying that, you know, some of these people don't have psychological issues, but I am hesitant to say that they're more likely to believe things because of said issues.
One of the big connecting devices of the Q community is the feature known in the social media world as algorithms, which sends browsers to ads or sites similar to the thing they initially Googled. So if one puts Hitler in a search engine, an algorithm could send the user to fictional accounts of Hillary and Obama doing some dirty deed to an innocent white child. Social media companies love algorithms because the revenue they generate from the ads their algorithms direct towards the users is huge. Q believers were sent down the outrageous rabbit holes by these algorithms. Should something be done in the form of regulating social media algorithms, given how they currently operate? Al, when you were doing your research on the Hollywood pedophilia stuff, would you get from one site that would send you to another, or how was your research formulated as far as where you got your information?
Yeah, I can't say I ran into any algorithms sending me down any rabbit holes. It was more, I would watch something, somebody would say something that I found peculiar. So I would go and do a Google search or something and, just research on my own based on things that I had found, but I wasn't actually directed to any further sites or videos or anything like that. So I can't speak to that.
Let me give you my experience with the algorithm. Whenever I was up in Alaska, I had to buy a lawnmower part for my riding lawnmower. And after I went online to buy it from Sears, it seemed like every time I turned my computer on, it would send me to all these different lawnmower parts. And I just figured that that's just the algorithm that is working to try to get me to continue to buy lawnmower parts. So that's my experience from it. Do you have any similar experience, Dan?
Yes, that's exactly how the algorithms and social media work. Like, this guy has had some accidents inside the house. And early on in my companionship of this dog, I had to find products to clean those up because just regular house cleaning products do not work. So as I researched, suddenly Facebook and Instagram are recommending dog groups to me because they know I have a dog based on my Google searches. Based on my Amazon reviews, I get sponsored ads for dog cleaning supplies, for belly bands and pee pads. And I just got an ad for a new cleaning product called Angry Orange that I'm considering because Nature's Miracle is not quite strong enough, I don't think. But that's what the algorithms are designed to do. Once they have found your interest, they start coordinating things. And it's not just social media that uses them. Like, the reason that stores have loyalty cards and key tags and things is so that they can analyze your buying preferences and target you with ads for things that they think you're going to want to buy. So if I buy a lot of chicken at Giant Eagle with my Giant Eagle Shoppers Club card, then I might get ads for chicken seasoning or dumpling mix or something that will go with that chicken. Or maybe just ads for, hey, we're going to put all of our chicken on sale. So the algorithms are not limited to social media. Now, I don't think there's a way to regulate what you're trying to describe and to keep that under control, to keep people from going down the rabbit holes. Like, once you start that search, you're known. The cookies are tracking you. They know what you're looking for. If you are able to look for stuff that is not connected to anything, and I am not tech savvy enough to know if this is really how it works, but I see ads for certain VPNs, virtual private networks, that apparently block the ad trackers from following you. So that might be a way around it. But as far as I understand, the internet, as I understand it, runs off of these things so that they know how to target you for your advertising.
So that's how they make their money, through the ads.
Right. And that YouTube channel that I mentioned earlier, I had never sought that out. Another YouTube content creator that I watched referenced that in one of her programs. Like, she needed something legal. So she said, hey, legal, what's the answer? He popped in, answered the question. And now, because I watch Lindsay's videos, Legal Eagle comes up in my YouTube feed. So I enjoy that content, but it was an algorithm. I saw an episode of Lindsay Ellis's show where he guest starred for 30 seconds, and now he comes up for me. And I keep watching them, which reinforces YouTube sending me similar content.
Yeah, I think the corner gets there's an algorithm. You like the Cranky Curmudgeon's Corner, go to Stephen Colbert or something like that. I think that exists too. I noticed that.
Yes, as soon as you put this on YouTube, it began, and there's no way to stop it that I'm aware of.
Yeah, well, that's just the nature of the medium. Whitney, algorithms in your life, have you had a good or positive experience with them, or you just don't care, or something you haven't noticed, or what do you know about them? And as far as your travels throughout the internet?
I have many minds about it. Sometimes it's useful just because sometimes if I'm searching for something and then it shows me something similar or a different brand that I hadn't already found or whatever. And sometimes it's a little creepy. No, I guess it's less creepy now that I know that it's happening all the time. But when I first started noticing it, it really freaked me out.
Well, you know how to avoid it now, right? You can kind of like see it coming and then prevent it from happening. Is that what you're saying?
No, I think it's not so much that I know how to avoid it. It's just that I'm less surprised by it, or not surprised by it anymore. But then sometimes the algorithms are wrong. Like, a good example is my sister is a vegan, and so she was moving from Phoenix back home here to Chicago, and so I wanted to get her some warm socks for the winter, and I was looking for like warm vegan socks, and the algorithm then started showing me ads for alpaca wool socks. And I'm like, okay, well, you got half of that right, but you missed the most important part, which is that they need to be vegan, and therefore alpaca socks are not going to work. But so that's one example I have where they just totally missed the mark. Or once in a while, I'll get like sponsored ads on Facebook or whatever from, back during like the election cycles. I would get them from the Trump campaign. And I was like, come on, Facebook, why don't you know me better than this by now?
Yeah, you'd think Facebook would have had your algorithms figured out and that you were not with Trump.
Mm.
Yeah. Al, do you have any algorithm experience to want to share, or you just did your research independently of algorithms?
Well, no, I mean, algorithms are everywhere. Obviously, with the advertising, sure, you mention something even when you're not on your phone, and the next day you start getting pop-up ads for whatever restaurant you mentioned. But it's not like if I researched, Tom Hanks drinking blood, then all of a sudden I started getting, Satan websites or, anything like that.
How do you know? Have you researched Tom Hanks drinking blood?
Yeah, I have.
Oh, you
just
have?
To see if there was anything out. Yeah, I want to find out
and
for
did you
myself.
come up with anything then?
Absolutely not. No, that's
Nothing.
what I said. Nope, not on, Clinton's or anybody for that matter. Lots of other things I found, like I said, about pedophilia, but not in terms of blood drinking.
So whenever you did Tom Hanks, you Googled Tom Hanks drinking blood. What popped up?
I mean, I don't know if I put that specific, title in, but
Okay, but whenever you did search that out,
right,
there were any other
there's
algorithms
nothing
that sent you anyplace else?
No, nothing
Okay.
like that. No.
All right, we should all be familiar with the phrase moving the goalposts. Many Q followers believed in the prophecies Q was making, until said prophecies ended up not happening on the date predicted by Q. Why worry about this prophecy not ever happening? Because there's always another one ready immediately to take its place. Early on, the prophecy was Trump winning. When that didn't happen, it became the courts, specifically the Supreme Court, declaring Trump the winner. The next prediction was January 6th, stopping Congress from certifying the Electoral College. While that event was pretty scary and quite criminal, it still failed to achieve what Q predicted. Next was the storm, which many interpreted to be Trump's declaration of martial law to continue the Trump presidency. Then we had the January 20th inauguration, which was not going to happen because the patriotic forces of good would never allow Biden to replace Trump. On we go to March 4th, which was the day that Trump's secret presidency finally becomes public again with his triumphant return to the White House. Things got a little slow with the passage of March 4th, so in order to stay relevant, Q reported that the death of a 99-year-old man, Prince Philip, was caused by a vaccine that millions of people across the globe safely took. The latest post I saw showed a photo of Ivanka Trump getting vaccinated by some Q followers claiming that this act resulted in her father having her executed. Now, the mainstream press still claims that Ivanka Trump is still alive, even though Q claimed her father had her executed. Here's the question. After getting everything listed above wrong, what makes Q a credible source of information to the believers in what Q posts? Are we back to this thing that we will continue to believe what we want to believe, and if something is along those lines, even though the source has been wrong all these times, we're still going to believe it? Al, what do you think about that?
Well, it's kind of the old carrot and stick method of, dangling that out in front of you, and as you reach for it, well, then it gets moved. So
moving the goalpost, you mean?
Yeah. So, you and I had talked about this before, how, I honestly thought, something was going to happen. And then when it didn't, you are left wondering what the heck. And then as you keep hearing more things that are supposed to happen, sooner or later, you have to realize, it's all bunk. Like, you can't just keep falling for it. It has to be, someone out there just trying to make money, or, the internet's always so full of misinformation and disinformation that, again, sooner or later, you have to realize that, I think most people are, that, it's just not happening.
So you think most people are. Would you say that there was a percentage of Q believers who are now no longer Q believers based on the fact that they were wrong about so many things?
Oh, yeah, I do think as
what
time
would that
goes
percentage
on,
be, you think?
Oh, God, I honestly couldn't imagine, Paul, what that is. I just know from my little corner of the world, talking to people, that, obviously there's less and less people. Right after the election and in early January, everyone was abuzz with all the internet rumors and everything. But as each date comes and goes, people are just slowly realizing, this is it. All that stuff was bunk, like I said.
Dan?
Well,
What do you think keeps them believing after so many things are wrong so often?
Well, it's faith that keeps them believing, and that's been true every time people have a lot of faith in something. Whenever you try to predict the future, unless you're predicting something really obvious, you're going to be wrong about some aspect of it. And even when you are predicting things that are really obvious, you're going to be wrong about some aspect of it. In the early days of the Christian church, there were communities where they wouldn't have children because the second coming was going to happen any day now. And eventually that couldn't be sustained. So that this is not a new phenomenon. You continually move past the goalposts. I think that part of the mystery and allure of Q is that Q doesn't come right out and say things as far as I have seen. Q gives you clues and it's up to you to interpret them. And I'm just reminded of the George R.R. Martin Song of Ice and Fire Game of Thrones books. And this didn't make it into the TV show, but there's a great scene between Jon Snow and Melisandre where he is complaining that her prophecies are wrong all the time. And she tells him, the prophecy is never wrong. It is just my interpretation that is wrong. And I feel that that's very relevant to the whole Q phenomenon because he's just leaving breadcrumbs. And I'm not even sure that it's one person. And I'm not even sure that it's still just the Watkinses or that the multiple Qs have anything to do with each other. I think part of it is a big game. But they're leaving little breadcrumbs and leaving a trail. And I don't know, the Q-tubers, as you call them, put together their analysis and then they make the predictions based on the information that they've garnered from Q. They're the ones making the prophecy, but the source material in the minds of the adherents is not wrong. It's just the Q-tuber interpreted it incorrectly. So now you have to come up with a new meaning for the pattern.
Okay, Whitney, why do you think people continue to believe whenever they're wrong all the time?
Well, if we're going back to your original question about what makes Q a credible source, is I think that it's a credible source because people believe it is. Just like, people will read something on Facebook, and I've been guilty of this myself without fact checking, and will take it as, gospel truth because they just heard it somewhere. But I think
because it's something that you were predisposed to believe anyway, initially.
Yeah, I think so to some degree. But I think that people who are more likely to believe a specific thing, I think are less likely to let go of that same thing. And that applies to anything. It could be religion. If you believe in God, then you're, probably less likely to become an atheist at some point in your life. Dan made some really good points about faith. Faith is a really strong thing, and people can run on absolutely nothing as long as they have faith.
And if the messaging that the Q-tubers that Dan alluded to is consistent with that faith, then they're going to go ahead and stick with it then.
Yeah, I think that's fair.